responsible? Are you responsible? You should take responsibility. Do you remember when you were a kid and your parents and your teachers used to say that to you? You should be responsible, act more responsibly. Well, now that you're an adult, do you feel responsible? And I love breaking that word down a little bit. Am I response-able? Am I able to respond? And I like to be in control of my life, so I'm always going to say, yes, I'm able to respond. But here's the great question. Are we able to respond to every situation, every challenge, every negative experience? Are we able to respond with passion and enthusiasm for every great experience? And what makes us capable of responding with responsibility rather than whinging, moaning, complaining, getting upset, getting stressed? If I take responsibility for everything that's happened to me, if it's up to me rather than blaming somebody else, and I'll give you a really interesting example of that. I've had managed many health clubs around the world. In one health club in particular, I had a member who was a psychologist, then became a psychiatrist, and practiced a lot of their learning skills with me. So we'd chat a lot about what makes the brain work and what stops the brain from working well, and really interesting conversations about the brain. Anyway, her discussion that really hit home to me was the difference between being mentally healthy and being mentally unhealthy, being mentally tough and being mentally weak. And her suggestion was this, according to her study as a psychologist and a psychiatrist, is that if you are mentally strong, it's because you take full responsibility for everything that happens in your life. And the further you become less responsible, the more blame you lay on other people, the less mentally strong you become, the more weak you become, the less mentally unhealthy you become. So if I take responsibility, I become mentally healthy. If I blame other people, I become mentally weak, and everything in between. And I thought that was really interesting, because I, of course, want to be mentally strong, don't you? So the suggestion is that everything that happens to us, should we look at it and say, was I responsible for that? Versus, who can I blame for that? And it's really easy to blame other people, isn't it? It's really easy to say it wasn't my fault. I didn't do it, it was them. Versus, it was me, it's my responsibility. And I'll give you some interesting examples. And of course, Romax is always about the four major parts of life. Who's responsible for my health and fitness? Who's responsible for my career and business success? Who's responsible for my financial security? And who is responsible for the people that I have in my life? Am I response-able? Am I responding with ability to being healthy, fit and strong, to having a career or business that I love, to being financially free and to having great people in my life? And I'm not sure how we could justify blaming anybody else for any of those. How could I blame somebody else if I'm not healthy, fit and strong? Interestingly though, have you heard people do it? I'm not healthy, fit and strong because I'm too busy. My boss is a pain in my backside. I've got too many children. My house is too big. I've got too much housework to do. I haven't got enough energy. And we blame and justify why we're not healthy, fit and strong. But ultimately, who's responsible for whether or not I get puffed, whether or not I overload my muscles and bones so that I get strong, and what do I put into my body to make sure that I stay healthy? Who's responsible for that? And is it possible that every meal that I've ever eaten, everything I've ever drunk, everything I've ever done to my body, I was there, I was involved, I chose to be there, I did it. Every meal I've ever eaten, I put that food in my mouth, I ate it. So when people say, I don't know why I'm overweight, could a better question be, every meal I've ever eaten, was I there? And I always make a bit of a joke about this. No one has ever snuck into my house at night while I'm sleeping, opened my mouth and forced food into my mouth while I was asleep and I didn't know about it. I have to take responsibility for everything that I eat. I am responsible for every bit of exercise that I do or don't do, and I take full responsibility for that. I don't ever want to blame somebody else for not exercising, and I never have. because why would I give my health and fitness, my strong muscles and bones, my strong immune system, why would I give the responsibility of that to somebody else? I have to take responsibility for that because I want to be healthy, fit and strong, don't you? I want to have a strong immune system. I want to have strong muscles and bones. I want to have a healthy, strong heart and lung system so I can breathe heavy, get puffed, lift heavy, kick hard and do all the things that I want to do. So I take responsibility for my health and fitness. I'm not going to blame anybody else if I'm not healthy, fit and strong. How about you? What about our job, our career, our business? We could blame somebody else for interviewing for a job or for opening a business or getting involved in an organisation, but ultimately who made the decision? Don't I have to take responsibility? If I'm in a lousy, stinking, rotten job that I don't like, did I interview to get in there? And if I did, who's responsible for me being there? Even better, am I responsible? Am I able to respond and get the hell out of there? Why would I work somewhere that I don't like? Why not take responsibility for my happiness, which is waking up every day doing something that I love? I always ask the question, how do you feel when you wake up in the morning, your eyes flutter open, and you're going to do something that you're passionate about, you're excited about going to do it, you have a purpose, versus you wake up having to go to a lousy, stinking, rotten job that you don't like, working for a boss that you might not like or respect, selling a product or service that you're not proud of. Why would you do that? Whose responsibility is it to make sure that you have a career or business that you love? What about your financial freedom? It's a bit like food, really, isn't it? Everything I've ever spent, I was there. Now, I've been in some interesting financial situations where I've spent too much, or I've spent more than I've earned, or I've trusted other people, accountants, lawyers, financial institutions with my money. And I could get real angry with some accountants and some financial institutions who lost me a lot of money. But I have to take responsibility for that because I chose that accountant. I chose that financial institution. I chose to invest in that particular group of things that screwed up. That wasn't their fault. I chose it. And I could we could all get very angry about some of the things that happen in the world with money. But even to the point where you could get angry with the government. But we live in countries, well, I'm very happy that I live in a country where there is diplomatic freedom. We get to vote. And if you don't vote and you don't like the government, then you probably shouldn't be complaining about the government, because that's one of the beautiful things about a democracy, about diplomacy, is that we get to vote. And now if the government screws up, a lot of people get angry because of the economy, the inflation, the prices, the petrol prices, the housing situation. Oh, that's the government's fault. But if you're in a great financial situation because you took responsibility of your own finances, are there people who, regardless of the screw-ups of the government, and is it possible the government's always going to screw up? So are there people that, regardless of inflation, petrol prices, real estate prices, what's going on with your global economy, they're still financially free, financially secure, wealthy, because they've looked after their money responsibly? Isn't that a great question? Am I able to respond responsibly? Who is responsible for my finances? And if I work hard, if I invest wisely, if I spend less than I earn, is it possible that my financial situation will be much better? So can I take responsibility for my finances? Could the answer be yes? And then there's people. Who's responsible for the amount of time that I spend with people? What I listen to, when people talk to me negatively, do I have to stay there and listen, or could I become responsible and get the hell out of there? And I think that's a really important question, because we often blame other people, don't we? It's really easy to blame people. But who put those people into our life? Now, a lot of people say to me, yeah, but Rowie, your family, you can't choose your family. But can I be responsible for how much time I spend with negative, nasty people who pull me down, who criticize me, who don't love that I want to achieve things, who say nasty things to me? Do I have to spend time with those people, or could I not go there? And is that my responsibility? And I think it's, again, a really important question. I always ask for our kids, because as adults, we get to choose, of course. We get to choose to be unhealthy if we want to. We get to choose to have a lousy, stinking, rotten job if that's what we're going to put up with. We get to choose to be broke if we haven't got a good financial plan, and that is a choice. We get to choose to have terrible, nasty, yucky people in our life. That's a choice. But is that what we want for our kids? And how would our kids know that they don't have to have a life like that if they haven't got somebody living the example? So if children look into our life, and I always ask this because I don't have any children, but I want to be responsible, a responsible adult, that if a child does look into my life, they will see that it is possible if you take responsibility for your own health, for your own career choices, for your own financial choices and the people that you have in your life, that you definitely can be healthy, fit and strong, and you can have a career or business that you love, and you can be financially free, and you can have great people in your life. Can, not can't. I hate the word can't, because there technically is no such thing. Everything or everybody that's been told that thing you want to do is impossible, can't be done, you can't do it. Everything that's ever been achieved, the person was told you can't, and they did it anyway. So how about we become can people? How about we take responsibility for the words that come out of our mouth, particularly when we're talking to kids? And what if we live the example of responsibility? Not blame other people, not justify why we didn't do it. Why not just become responsible and do it? And I'll go back to my the very strong suggestion from my psychiatrist, a health club member. If you want to be mentally tough and strong, you have to take full responsibility for everything in your life. If you are happy to be mentally weak and unhealthy, that happens when you blame and justify what you didn't do. So I'm just going to plant that seed, because for me, living life to the max is all about living at this end, taking full responsibility for everything. And there's two parts to that. Take full responsibility for all the decisions that you make. So be happy and excited about all the great things that you do. Take responsibility for being successful and being happy and being in great shape and loving your life. Be happy about that. And if you screw up, if you make a mistake, if things don't go the way you plan for them to, let's take responsibility for that. We made the decisions. And the beautiful thing about that is we can't change the decision. We can't change the past. Whatever decisions we've made back here, we can't go back and change those. But can we learn from them? Can we grow from them? Can we get better because of them? And of course the answer is yes. Isn't that exciting? So responsibility, be responsible. Could that be a great way to live life to the max? If you want to be mentally tough and mentally strong, become responsible. What a great idea. I feel good, because I'm responsible. Everybody should be responsible. Woo!